Suicide Note, by Mitchell Heisman. This work is a computer-generated reading of Suicide Note, by Mitchell Heisman. This reading was produced using Natural Reader 14, a product of Natural Soft Limited. This work is free and licensed by Mitchell Heisman for copying and distribution under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivative Works 3.0 United States license. Part 1. God is Technology. How the singularity of monotheism transcended biology and primed the technological genesis of God. The agony of victory. Success is disaster. With Zionism, Jews are victims once again, only this time they are victims of their own success. A Jewish state could only exist in a liberal or tolerant world compatible with a quasi-Jewish morality tolerant of weaker states. Yet this very emphasis on weaker states gives displaced Palestinians more moral voice than any other people in a comparable situation. Political success is simultaneously the only viable option and the moral Achilles heel of Jewish history. Traditional Jewish morality distinctively emphasized marginal or powerless social groups, and this was, in part, a reflection of Jewish identification as a marginal or powerless social group among Gentiles. The Jewish morality that negates power in principle selects for the weaker over the stronger, the more feminine over the more masculine, the powerless over the powerful. The seat of the idea of equality is this empowering of the weaker while depowering the stronger. However, to follow this logic to its extreme, to consistently choose and value the weaker, is to value weakness itself. To overthrow the strong, in principle, ultimately leads one to overthrow what is strong within oneself. In this way, radical moral integrity through rational moral self-consistency leads to rational self-destruction. When Jews acquired power after historic powerlessness, the original conditions of Judaism unraveled. To empower the powerless or marginalized is self-empowering while Jews themselves are powerless. But when the Jewish cause becomes victorious, this strategy backfires and Jewish principles deconstruct themselves, inverting the inverters. For the Zionist state to consistently empower the disempowered Palestinians at their own expense would be political suicide. Being Goliath is a problem when the moral of the story is that David ultimately wins. The internationalism of Christianity laid the common ground for a world that has a place for the nationalism of the Jews. Just as Roman conquerors penetrated the territorial socio-biological boundaries of the ancient Jewish state, the Jewish-based God memes of Christianity penetrated the ancient Roman world. Christianity began a process of blunting and mollifying the deepest ethical cultural gulfs between Jew and Gentile. The penetration of Jewish genes into the modern Gentile West is only a continuation of the anti-kin selective logic that began with Christianity. In other words, Jewish assimilation as individuals in the modernistic West is only a continuation of Gentile assimilation to the socio-biological impact of Christianity. Both as individuals and as a Zionist state, Western assimilation of Jewish bodies was founded upon Western assimilation of a Jewish spirit. The success of the Jewish state among nations is partly dependent on Gentile assimilation of Jewish ethics, but by those ethics, Israel's struggle for existence appears that much more hypocritical and villainous. Zionism highlights how Jewish genes and Jewish ethical memes reach towards incompatible ends. The success of Zionism implies the failure of a truly universal equality, while the success of equality implies the failure of Jewish genetic self-preservation against intermarriage. This clarifies the role of oppression withstanding extinction in making the original gene/mem symbiosis of Judaism adaptive and successful. Success in overcoming oppression, on the other hand, proves disastrous from the view of ethnic preservation. Since political failure created the best general conditions for the success of the gene/mem symbiosis of Judaism, political success creates the conditions for its failure. The gene/mem symbiosis of Judaism broke down when liberated from the ghetto. The extreme implications of genes and memes, represented by Zionism and Marxism, are mutually contradictory. The Zionist cause of Jewish genetic self-preservation leads to the corruption of Jewish ethical memes, while Marxist Jewish egalitarian memes can only most fully realize themselves at the expense of genetic self-preservation as a group, i.e. intermarriage. Taken to their extremes, Jewish memes are in deadly conflict with Jewish genes, and vice versa. Since diaspora assimilation leads to genetic dissolution, and the precarious territorial standstill of Israel leads to moral dissolution, both taken together seem to show the limits of the Jewish national idea in world history. Original Judaism was built on low expectations for both Jewish politics and Gentile morality. Transcending these problems has thus been disastrous for the original symbiotic balance of Judaism. Jewish intermarriage with Gentiles in the West, for example, is only another consequence of the ironic logic of Jewish moral self-consistency. The extreme national implications of Jewish genes are realized at the expense of the international implications of Jewish memes. If oppression has been the preserver of the Jewish nation as a distinct and separate group, this implies at least two things. First, radical Jewish nationalism via Gentile oppression culminates in Jewish national extinction, i.e. Auschwitz. Second, radical Jewish internationalism culminates in Jewish national extinction. Both radical oppression and radical liberation lead to the end of Jews as a distinct group, although in the latter case Jews may survive as individuals. Since anti-Semitism has been an organizer of Jews as a distinct group, defeating anti-Semitism defeats Jewish genetic self-preservation. If Jews evolved and thrived on oppression, the ultimate victory, their moral mission against oppression and inequality, results in their national destruction. The universalistic success of the Jewish moral idea means the dissolution of national unity. Since Jews found the seeds of existential victory in political defeat, the seeds of Jewish existential defeat are to be found in their world historical victories. Ultimate success, however, is to be found in total self-destruction as biological being in the singularity.